Hey folks, this is Jake here from Canadian Cutting Edge, and we're looking at two little knives here for Wee Wednesday. These are a recurve blade and a bellied blade, almost the exact same radius for both of them. Very, very close actually, just the opposite radius, inside and outside of the radius. This is a knife that is probably about 50% smaller copy of the Subcom that Boker Plus uses, designed by Chad Los Banos. And if you want a really small version of that knife, this might be something that you would be interested in. If you want the full-size one, then you go to Boker Plus, Boker USA, probably if you're in North America, bokerusa.com, and look for the Subcom. And you'll be able to get this. Their version is a steel frame lock with a Zytel show side. This FURA version, copy of their knife, is a titanium handle, and what they claim is S35VN stainless steel blade. So if it is a genuine S35VN stainless steel blade, then this is a much higher quality blade than OS8. But it is a somewhat different knife simply because of the size. It is a very different handling knife. I have had the Subcom in my hand, and it just handles actually quite a bit differently because of that small size difference. Chad's is about 50%. I mean, the Boker is about 50% larger than this, and it just holds differently. That being said, this still holds fairly well. And so if you're interested in learning more about this knife, then stick around for the full review coming at you right now. Before I talk about these knives, I want to let you know that GearBest is having their 4th anniversary sale, and it's getting started very soon. I'll have links for their sale in the description below. Please check out GearBest. They've been helping me out for a long time. And even before I used GearBest, even before I became an affiliate or a reviewer for GearBest, I found GearBest to be the best Asian store for buying stuff. No, they don't have Western-style customer service. Yes, their shipping is sometimes slower, or almost always slower, especially for knives. And they don't always have customer service the way that we're used to having out here in the West. But before I ever teamed up with them, I found that they always gave me good support in the long run. It took a little while to get there. Sometimes you have to, feel like you were giving them the same information over and over again. But they were the only company that always came through and did the right thing for me. Everybody else that I dealt with, shafted me in one way or another at one time. And that's why I continue to work with GearBest. I continue to promote their store and their products. If I could find those same products in North America for the same price, yeah, I'd go and buy them there. But I can't. You just can't find prices like this anywhere else but buying them overseas. And if you're going to buy overseas, my personal opinion is that GearBest is the best place to go. So that's my suggestion. That's my little advertisement. Now let's get to talking about these knives. So it really is a very small knife that we have here. What do I have to compare it to? Well, give me just a second. There's a regular full-size screwdriver. So yeah, pretty big, eh? Here's a regular Bic pen. So you close this knife up, and a Bic pen cap is longer than the knife is. So that tells you a little bit of something about how small these knives are. I will give you the actual dimensions a little bit later on in the video. But let's go over what we have here. Again, this is a copy of the Subcom by Chad Los Banos. His are about 50% larger than these, and those are still pretty small. You can find Chad's Subcoms online. In the United States, you can find them for about $25 a piece. You can get this guy this style for about 25 US dollars. Unfortunately, in Canada, they start around $50 and up, $53, $54. Quite a bit of money for a little knife. But this thing's got titanium and what they claim, as I mentioned before, a higher quality steel. This titanium feels really good in hand. I like the extra texture that they have for these cutouts. Chad did a really good design on that. Very comfortable in hand. You put your index finger in this big choil, and your middle finger will hold it there, and your thumb on the spine. And you've actually got a good tool to do all kinds of minor jobs, a little package opening, minor cutting, and it works surprisingly well for those kinds of tasks. Of course, Chad's knife works a little bit better because that size is a little bit more what most of us are looking for in a knife. It's bigger than this, and a little bit bigger is better, but sometimes smaller is more collectible. And the reason I really like small knives is something to do with the aesthetic, something to do with just the simple fact that they are tiny knives. And so I like to collect tiny knives. And so I got one with each of these two different blade styles. And as I said in the beginning, that the radius there is very much the same. Let's zoom in on that. So you can see that the radius, very, very similar. Not bad at all. It just depends on if you want a belly or if you want a recurve to cut with. Now, I have sharpened these. These were not quite like this from the factory, mostly because I wanted to see how difficult it would be to sharpen these. And it is not easy to sharpen these. You really do need a system that you can clamp onto the end of the blade right there and hold it. I could not sharpen these on my Hapstone. It just wouldn't work. But it sharpened quite well on my TS Prof. And I even got this recurve sharpened quite well, and that's because I've got a set of recurve stones. Now, if you don't know what recurve stones look like, I will show you. So this is a recurve stone, and as you can see from the end, let's see if it'll focus up here. There you go. You can see the shape of it. It's a round stone, basically half a rod, and so when you're sharpening, it sharpens just on one spot instead of on the whole side. And so then you can sharpen, just across the stone, across the blade like that. You just sort of slide it across while it's sharpening, and you can get the whole thing sharp. You can't get right close to the end here. If this knife had a sharpener's choil on it, like this little guy does, it just has a little one. If it had a larger one, and if this had a larger sharpener's choil, you could get right to the end very well. I got it pretty close, but I sharpened it quite well just using a set of these stones. And so I like these stones an awful lot. So we've got a frame lock. So there's the frame lock cutout. I had to do a relief cut right there so that the frame lock could close. There's a detent ball in there. As I prepared for editing, I wanted to take it apart so I could give you a picture of the ball bearings in there, because I can feel that that's what it is. When you're experienced enough, you get to know what it feels like. So I wanted to take it apart, and got my proper screwdriver, and I turn it, and it just turns along. This side just spins free along with it. So it's not a D-shaped post that stands still. So what do? Well, traditionally, when it's smooth like that, what I've done is I've taken some tape, and I put tape over it, and I rub it on very hard. Sometimes I give it a good amount of time. Now, this is Gorilla duct tape, so the really good stuff. And even with this and putting pressure on the back while I'm getting ready to turn this, it just turns along. And so there's absolutely nothing to do. You can see how well I've tried. You have to stripe this glue on the back of the tape. So I can't take it apart to show you the inside. but I did take a good close zoom up shot and saw that and showed you, I can show you a little bit of the detent ball. I think that is actually ceramic. There's no insert or anything in here. It doesn't really need it. Yes, it will wear a little bit, but I haven't found it on this tiny knife to be a problem. It doesn't really need a lock bar insert or a lock interface, a steel interface to interface with the knife. This isn't a big, hard-working knife, and so it just hasn't found a need for that. You can see the lockup on this one is a little bit past the midway point. And the lockup on this one is nice and early where you'd like it to be. Now, that being said, I'm not going to use these very much. My tiny knives are more of a wee knife collection that sits on a shelf and doesn't do an awful lot. I wouldn't want to put this knife on my keychain, although I could. I don't want it on a keychain because I'm going to scuff up this titanium very quickly if I put a small ring on here, a split ring, and then carry it around on my keychain. But is it a size that's good for a keychain? Definitely. It's the size and the weight that's perfect for a keychain knife. So if that's something that you're looking for, especially if you want a recurve, because a recurve can be very, very handy for opening all kinds of packages. With that tip and that negative belly there, it's just very, very handy. It might be something that you're considering. And the big question everybody's going to ask is it S35VN stainless steel? I don't know. That's my official answer, but I think it probably is. FURA has been, I've been doing some testing. I still don't have my testing worked out. I was very much inspired half a year ago by Peter over at the Cedric and Ada Gear and Outdoors channel and the edge retention testing that he does with sisal rope. And I've been finding something else to do it with, and I thought I had it all worked out, and I thought I had a really good system worked out, and I even announced it, and I was so proud of it. And yet I'm just not getting enough consistent results. I'm still working on it, my friends. I'm still working on it because I really do want to have an edge retention test so that I can tell if a knife is, if a blade steel is what they claim that it is. What I do is I take other knives that have S35VN that I trust, and I see how many cuts it can do through X material, and then I test these FURA knives and see if it's very similar or not. And if it has a very similar work usage, you know, it cuts around the same number of times in the same materials, done the same way, then it's probably the same thing. And that's the best we can say, is probably. And so this probably is S35VN stainless steel, and it makes sense for the price, especially for the size of steel that we have. So what is the price on this thing? Well, let's give you the prices, and then I'll do the dimensions. The price for these right now, you've got two different prices. The different colors are different prices at GearBest. I guess the colors that sell like crazy, they leave the price higher, and the colors that aren't selling that well, they drop the price down. That's what I guess. But in any case, it's the rainbow ones that cost the least right now in both styles. Before I do the sizes, remember, there's no pocket clip anywhere, and that's okay. Construction's done well, and it looks really nice. It really does. It's a very good look. Chad knows how to design knives. The blades are two different sizes here. So for most things, I'm just going to go through the dimensions as if I've got one knife, because the handles are exactly the same and the thicknesses are the same. It's just the cutting edges that are different, so, and the blade length. So let's do that first. So the cutting edge on this one is 1 1/4 inches, 3.2 centimeters. Cutting edge on this one is 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters. I didn't do a blade length thing. Blade thickness for both of these is 3 millimeters. That's 0.118. The blade depth, that's this distance right here, and I did it right at the base, just before the cutting edge, and they're identical. 2.36 centimeters, 0.93 of an inch. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, and you can just see it, that this one is much less than the recurve. This one, the thickness of the edge behind the grind on this knife is 0.5 millimeters. That's 0.0195 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind on this knife is 0.8 millimeters. That's 0.031 inches. So quite a bit thicker. Let's move on to the handle. The handle length is 4.8 centimeters. That's 1.9 inches. The grip area, so between my thumbs, is 3.8 centimeters, 1.5 inches. The handle thickness, just under a centimeter. That's 0.38 of an inch. The handle depth is 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch. And the total length of this knife, this one's a little bit longer. Total length is 8.1 centimeters, 3.2 inches. And the total length of this one is 7.6 centimeters, 3 inches. They both, well, they're not exactly the same weight, but close enough. I'm going to say they're 35 grams, 1 1/4 ounces each. And that's very close. This one's a tiny bit less than that. And I've redone the prices and everything. So I've gone through the specs and stuff. Now let me tell you what I like and don't like about these knives. The design is awesome. I really, really like it. No thanks to FURA. All the thanks for that goes to Chad Los Banos. A big plus on these is they're a great conversation starter. They grab attention, especially if you've got the colorful version. They don't, they're not threatening, which is a good thing. So you can take this almost anywhere you want. It's small enough to take for a domestic flight in Canada, or a flight from Canada to Europe, for that matter, for most places in Europe, because they allow you to have a blade that's up to 6 centimeters long, and this is around half of that. It cuts better than I expected that it would, so that's a really good thing. They're great for opening small packages. You've got a nice piercing point on both of these, and, you know, this works very well for slicing, nice and thin, and this nice recurve works very well for ripping things open. This one's really good for those clamshell packages. You don't have such a long blade that you're going to end up cutting yourself easily or cutting the product that you're opening, so that's a good thing. It's really, really good knives that way. What are the cons? Well, I'd like it to be just slightly bigger. I think Chad was right when he made them the size that he made them. It's just a little more useful of a knife at that size. The recurve is hard to sharpen. You do really need to have special equipment to sharpen this recurve. It's, you know, a sharp angle. It's so small. You know, it's not that easy to sharpen the recurve on this. If you've got the equipment for it, more power to you. Really good choice in that case. Otherwise, this one's not hard to sharpen, really, but, you know, it does take a little bit more effort than a lot of other knives. But you've probably had a lot of knives that have this kind of radius on the belly of the blade, and then they're going straight to the back. So just think of it as just the tip of a large knife, and you're just sharpening that part, and it works just fine. Do you want to get one of these knives? Well, if you do, please use my links for GearBest down below in the description area. I've got links for, I just have one link to the rainbow one with the recurve and one link to the rainbow one with the belly, because when you go to that link, it will show the 3 other colors on that same page, and you'll just be able to go to whichever color you want. And if you use the link for the rainbow one and you end up buying the blue one, as long as you used my link first, you know, I'll still get a little bit of credit for it. So no problem at all. In fact, if you use one of my links, if the link is less than a month old and you use my link to open up GearBest's website, then anything you buy on GearBest, that shopping excursion, I will get a little bit of a fee for everything that you buy. So that's a really good thing. So even if you're shopping for something that's totally unrelated to knives, if you want to help me out, go ahead and use one of my newest links to get there and then shop for whatever you want. Your price will not go up, and I'll get a tiny bit of a commission out of the deal. And it's a great way that you can help me out if you want to give me that kind of help. I do have some coupon codes for knives and for just about anything that you want to buy at GearBest right now. That's down below. And remember, it's the 4th anniversary sale getting started. Check out GearBest's 4th anniversary sale. They've got all kinds of good stuff for you. And That's going to be a awesome experience, I think. Some really good prices. They do have sales quite often, but their sale prices are actually very good quite often. So there you go. So thanks, my friends, for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting. Thank you especially to my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. And remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.